Back on NFL Daily with my friend Jordan Rodrigue of The Athletic, talking about a TNF game that's been on my radar since the very beginning of the season. Now, that's partly because I wanted to make sure I got the best booking possible for the TNF recap, and I did. I locked down Nick Wesseling early.
Big get.
But also just because these two teams only play awesome games. They already played one awesome game this season, Jordan. And yeah, the Bengals' record isn't as good as you would expect at this point in the season. Frankly, neither is the Ravens for how good a team they are. That actually makes the game bigger for the Cincinnati Bengals. They kind of need this one in Baltimore.
The stakes are so high for a Cincinnati Bengals team trying to, once and for all this season, right the ship and really start to put things together. And also for a Ravens team trying to just dominate people, to establish that we know how to win in November and keep rolling that wagon all the way into the postseason. There's maybe some very sneaky MVP dialogue here on the line as well. I am so heckin' fired up for this game, Greg. Oh, my God.
I am too. Al, Kirk, I better not even
Bring it,
hear
Al. Come on.
Like a minute of apathy or complaining, no matter how long this game is going. But these two guys deliver. Look, last time, 41-38 back in Week 6. Burrow had 5 touchdowns in that game, almost 400 yards. Lamar had 4 touchdowns through the air in that game, 348 yards. And it's funny because I see the Ravens as they're obviously a Super Bowl contender. Maybe that's still the Super Bowl favorite in the AFC, even if they don't have home field. And yet, if they lost this game, which would be totally understandable, a division rival, you split games, they'd be at 6-4. Who knows what's going to happen with this Steelers team? And they're kind of in the morass. So where do you want to start? Just offensive, defensive matchups, because Lamar versus this Bengals defense on paper is probably the biggest mismatch of the game. Do you disagree?
Yeah, I mean, I trust Lamar Jackson and this Ravens offense far more than I trust what's been a really wobbly, decent to good against bad teams, Bengals defense to sometimes looks like they're putting things together, also kind of seeming like they're aging out a little bit too quickly. This is going to be super interesting because right now Lamar Jackson's at a 68.2 completion percentage. He's playing lights out and including some extremely tough throws and throws out of structure, but it's all clicking between himself and Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator, and his receivers. And in that scheme, everyone's eating and everyone's benefiting. Derrick Henry, obviously just dominating, people already over 1,000 yards this season. Everything is starting to feel like it clicks together against a Bengals defense that we just don't know who they are week over week. And the scheme itself and Lamar's ability and the receivers and Derrick Henry widening things out, making people play differently. Lamar Jackson has targeted a wide open receiver on 32.8% of his pass attempts this season, second highest in the NFL. That's going to be tough.
Who's higher? I'm shocked. Jared Goff? I was
gotta be, yeah, it's got to be Jared Goff.
This is a total
Next gen
guess.
stats, yeah.
I'm just thinking of what offense could be run better. It's no slight, obviously, to Goff or Lamar. And I think it really hit home last week. Vance Joseph admitted, he said it out loud, we wanted to force them to pass because you're just picking your poison. And so it's why this Derrick Henry-Lamar combination is so mutually beneficial
it's just wonderful.
That a team would actually have to feel like they have to sell out to stop the run, which I get it, but also that's not a great idea. That's pretty much what we saw actually in the first matchup. I went back and checked some of my notes for that game too, and the Bengals did blitz a lot, which I was surprised, and they did get a lot of pressure on Lamar Jackson, tried to get the ball out of his hand, and that's just not working. There's no perfect way to attack Lamar right now or this team because he's better against zone than he used to be. You saw that a week ago against Denver. The game has slowed down for him. He's like in the Matrix right now. Like everything is just in absolute slow motion. But I'm the other way. I actually, as crazy as it is, as bad as the Bengals are defending the run, if you were trying to make a choice, I'd rather die slowly against the Ravens and just see if we can bow up and maybe just get them into some third down situations, because counting on Lamar to not beat you through the air is dumb. Here's a stat, and then I'll hand it off to you. This is a lot on Lamar, but FTN, where Aaron Schatz works, where there's DVOA, they also have defensive yards above average, adjusted for the defensive they've played. Lamar is at 1,114 yards for the season, above average. The next closest quarterback is actually Jaden Daniels at 676. The gap between Lamar, number 1, and Jaden Daniels, number 2, is the same as the gap between Jaden Daniels, number 2, and the 16th best quarterback in the league. So and that's not even counting his running ability. So that's just how good this offense is right now. They're the 8th best offense through 9 weeks in all the years that they've measured it over at FTN too. So it's like, I don't know. I'd rather die slowly, personally.
You mentioned, I mean, yeah.
Not in life. In life, quickly, but on the football field, slowly.
Well, hopefully quickly, but over a long period of time, be on the planet for a long time. Greg, please don't put that in the universe. Yeah. So, but I think, yes, you want to try to make them at least see what happens if you try to make them run. Because like I said before, it's just clicking for this passing attack in ways that even struggled a little bit prior to the start of the season. And that's only going to get more cohesive. They're only going to get more reps and better reps for each other. And where I think you might have a little bit of an argument, a case to make for the Bengals defense there is, even though they've been really erratic and just they're number 25 in DVOA for a reason, right? But they're not missing a ton of tackles on the first and second level. Now, if that is Derrick Henry enters the picture, like that meme of like Big Bird kicking down the door. Mm-hmm. Like if Derrick Henry enters your life in such fashion, I don't know if you're not missing tackles in that way, particularly when we see some of the stuff they did at the beginning of the year with Lamar running the ball as well and that misdirection. So it's just so hard to stop this team and to pick which one is going to hurt the least.
Right, because I remember in that first game, I actually thought they had some of the run-pass option plays defended pretty well, and they would still get 6 yards. It's like
still staying ahead of the down.
Right. There were some times where I thought Lamar Jackson made the wrong read. That was one of the games where it really clicked, like how they've cut the cheat code, where he actually made the wrong read. He should have kept the ball, or he should have handed it off. And yet you're still getting five yards, even if everyone's in good position. If you want to blitz them like they did the first time around, and I doubt they'll run the same game plan because that's not what Lou Anarumo was going to do. Like Justice Hill is a very valuable player in this offense. They killed the Broncos on the couple times that they sent pressure here, and then they let him out of the backfield as a little just outlet for Lamar Jackson. There's just a lot of ways that they're going to beat you. The pass rush is a big concern for the Bengals. It's really Trey Hendrickson and not much else. And the Ravens have been surprisingly good as a pass protection unit all season. Ronnie Stanley having a nice season. On the flip side, are you a little worried, and we don't know if Orlando Brown is available for this game, that Cody Ford and Amarius Mims could be the starting tackles for Joe Burrow in this game?
I mean, I think that you could see that they were a little worried about some of the ways that their pass protection was starting to break down a little bit because they were trying to play in heavier personnel over the last couple of weeks. They were trying to do different things that you don't always see from a Zach Taylor offense to get just a little bit more help in different ways, not only get more eligibles on the field for Joe Burrow, but also chipping when you need to and just, getting, but they're going to have an issue with that because Eric All, the tight end that they really, really liked, torn ACL. He was, Paul Dehner at The Athletic was writing about how he was one of the reasons why they could feel more comfortable just adding extra protection and extra things. Joe Burrow is playing at an otherworldly, unreal level, Greg. It kind of feels like he forced himself to go to that place a little bit.
Right.
Well.
Yeah, it's maybe a dark place, but it's a place that has led to a lot of production. Let's actually listen to Joe Burrow talking about, he just isn't necessarily happy, even after a 5-touchdown performance.
Yeah, I think just how the season has gone, knowing what's ahead of us, knowing what we're going to have to do to get back into this. One win isn't going to make or break our season. So, I'm going to strive for perfection every day and every game. So, until that happens, what's there to be happy about?
Hey, look, he just wasn't happy. I love that they asked him about that on Wednesday, and he was like, I guess I should I should work on that.
He
that
blacked out. Like, he
was like-
doesn't remember it.
yeah, he's like, I didn't know that I was making a face like that. I guess I should worry about my body language a little more. They also asked him about the Khalil Herbert trade, which let's talk about quickly here.
Mm-hmm.
And they just said, I'm glad we went out and tried to get better. Just very stone-faced, is like, we need to get better. I wasn't expecting the Bengals to make a lot of moves at the trade deadline, though. I did like that they tried to improve their backfield because Zach Moss is expected to miss the rest of the season. So that's a lot to ask of Chase Brown to be their only running back there, and Khalil Herbert can give them a little bit of a hammer. They're going to need to be able to run the ball. If T. Higgins is not available for this game, I have a feeling he is. I don't know. I don't know anything, but in a scenario where they were maybe trying to push him to play last week or not, and you got 2 games in 5 days, this is the game that you save T. Higgins for, because you mentioned it. No Eric All, leaving extra guys in for protection. Suddenly, that receiver group, it's a big fall off. Mike Gesicki has more yards this season, and it's actually played great, than T. Higgins, which is crazy.
Yeah, to your point, yes, on T. Higgins, if he's going to be ready to go, like, this has got to be the game to be ready to go. Joe Burrow wanted to circle back on that for a minute,
please.
because a couple weeks ago, I was joking around saying, like, oh, man, he's in a really dark place because he was quiet. He was totally, like, in this silent rage in his press conference. Like, he was very quiet and, like, low tone, and you could tell he was just internally seething. And I saw that, and I was like, he's going to snap. One of these days, he's going to snap, and then, like, the serial killer vibe's going to just come out of him, and it did. And you watch that game, and you watch how he was on the sideline and how he was talking around like Jermaine Burton at a certain point, who was a scratch because he missed practice on Saturday. So back to the point of the pass catchers, like, you're seeing him try to work with other guys, get other guys open. Obviously Jamar is going to be who Jamar is, but Mike Gesicki has stepped up in certain ways, particularly when the Bengals are attacking the seam. And I think that actually could quietly be a big difference in this game, because we know that attention is going to go toward the big name receiver / receivers if T. Higgins can play. But Mike Gesicki, with the 100 yards game last week, I think we'll see more of him, because the Ravens passing defense, which has let them down a lot, and yes, they traded for Trey White. I don't expect him to be a huge part of that secondary right away, if even for the long term, just coming off the Achilles, but good depth just in case. But the Ravens have allowed the second most yards per attempt and the second most EPA on passes in the seams this season. And it's interesting because Joe Burrow targets that seam and those seam routes at the 3rd highest rate in the NFL. So I do think this could quietly be a Joe Burrow, Mike Gesicki continuation of what they did last week.
Gesicki keeps making incredibly athletic, improbable catches.
Just like he did at Penn State.
Joe Burrow, just like he did for that one season in Miami, where he was just next level, and he got paid for it, and I'm happy that he did. And I'm happy that he ended up in a place like Cincinnati, because we just would have never known that Mike Gesicki still had this in him. And I think Joe Burrow is just feeling, first of all, he's moving so well.
Yeah.
He just creates space and time on the field in a way that reminds me a lot of Mahomes, but he does it in his own way, where he creates open receivers by the way that he moves in the pocket. I think he's just so frustrated that this is the season that I actually am healthy and everything should be happening for us. Like, I've been waiting for a season like this, and it's not really happening. And it's not because of him, although they have had the ball late a handful of times on offense and actually haven't gotten the ball done. That's why I was annoyed when Bengals fans were like, hey, we're these amount of plays away from him being the favorite for MVP. I was like, they've had chances on offense to win at the end of these games. Unfortunately, their defense is bad enough that that's maybe making Burrow frustrated. And then T. Higgins isn't healthy. And you even look at the box score in the game the first time they played the Ravens, it's really all Jamar and T. Higgins. And you really notice the last couple of weeks, defenses took away the deep ball from Jamar Chase, and they were still able to be really productive, but it wasn't the same. They're just not the same unless you have both of them, because this is a star-driven team. I don't think it's a scheme-driven team. And
I would agree with that. That's a really good point, actually. I would definitely.
Actually?
Yeah. Well, not actually. I mean, I don't want to cut you off.
I mean,
it was a really
as
great
Dave
point.
Damashek likes to point out, everyone check out his new show, by the way, The Sheck Show.
I just followed him on Instagram.
He's the best. And I just did The Sheck Show this week, and he's great. He always pointed out, like, when someone says actually, that's a red flag because they don't
No,
normally
I
think you.
was thinking
In this
like,
case, that you don't normally think I make a good point, but actually this time I did.
well, not to go sideways, actually,
Please.
but you continually make good points. That just stopped me in my tracks for a second because I'm like, if I'm going to sum up why this Bengals offense has just not, I mean, without the guys that they have on the field, you just don't, and without Burrow, you just don't get it. You don't see it, and certainly not from the head coach. And so that's where I paused for a minute because I was like, oh, that's a really good way of phrasing that. Without their bona fide dudes on the field, including Joe Burrow, lifting, it seems like trying to lift this defense, out of its inconsistency, you just don't have that faith.
And he could do it. He cooked the Ravens last time, but he did have one interception in that game, and that wasn't totally the difference because there's a possession in overtime. I mean, Lamar fumbled the ball. He actually reminded me a little bit of Joe Burrow. He was very upset after that game, even though they won, yes. But it could be one of those games where just one pick either way, and I can't quite believe that the Ravens defense is this bad. I keep expecting it to start getting better because that's been the history, but it is a different coaching staff. Marcus Williams comes back into the lineup last week at safety, but right now they are 14th overall on defense, 23rd against the pass. They're a good run-stopping team.
Yeah.
The Bengals are not a team that will bang their head against the wall if it's not working. They're just going to throw the ball like crazy, and they're going to pick on Brandon Stevens probably back there, Darius Washington. There's a lot of spots there, and their pass rush hasn't been good enough. So I actually think he should be fine. Cody Ford and Amarius Mims should probably be fine against the Ravens and their pass rush.
You heard them looking around trying to maybe potentially test the trade deadline in that, but just, they're struggling in that phase. And I think either or in this game, Greg, as we get ready to make our picks, either
too early in the
either
week. I'm not
super
ready.
high scoring on both sides, right? Because I could totally see that super high scoring because everyone just throws it, right? I mean, obviously you're going to try to, like you said, die slowly potentially if you're Lou, but I think ultimately everyone's just throwing the hell out of the ball, and we could get a high scoring game. Or it could be totally the opposite, where both defensive coordinators with some of the familiarity this is like their kitchen sink game plan. You know how, like Jonathan Gannon, for example, every once in a while, he has this kitchen sink game plan where he just throws all this weird stuff at you, and it's not something that you're used to, whatever, because this is, AFC North. This is going to be a weird one.
I could see that, but I feel like these defenses can't handle the kitchen sink game right now. They've tried it. There's just not a lot of cohesion. I'm at the point in the year where I know the Ravens, or I think the Ravens will probably lose games or a game in the rest of the season, but I'm not going to pick it.
Yeah.
I'm picking them to win every single game.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, you are.
I'm 100% there with you. In fact, because earlier in our Thursday shows and our previews, I was trying to be a little risky with the picks and think, oh, well, maybe this could. I'm like, nope, team is good. Pick that team. Ravens are a wagon. Pick the Ravens. I'm picking the Ravens by a touchdown, actually. A high-scoring game, 35-28.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'll go 30-27. Not quite as high as last time around, but quite high. It comes down to the end. Bengals aren't done if they lose this game, but they feel like they're going to be in a different tier of scrapping and trying to get to that 7 seed if they lose this game. They'll be in primetime because of the flex decision in a week as well against the Chargers. They'll have a little extra rest after this Thursday night. So they're not going anywhere. I don't think their season's done, but there's something about this team. They weren't having fun coming into the season with the contract stuff, both receivers, and they don't seem like they're having that much fun now. They feel a little 23 Eagles to me. I don't think they're going to collapse like the Eagles, but it's like the expectations are tough in life. You don't want to have expectations.
Plus,
I think they had too much expectation.
If you're a frustrated team, I got to say, there's a lot of cool atmospheres in the NFL, especially for night games. It's hard for me to find one that's cooler than a night game home at Baltimore.
I've never been.
It's sick, dude. It's very gothic vibes. It's just and it's loud. And if you're a frustrated team on the other side, it's only going to get more frustrating with that crowd.
Okay, so we are both taking the Ravens. Fun show. Thank you to Mike Garafolo for joining us. Thank you to Jordan Rodrigue for making time in between her busy press conference schedule. We will be back on the Wednesday preview show. Might drop a little early this week since the trade deadline one dropped early. Maybe the preview too. Patrick Claybon, Steve Weiss will be in the studio previewing all the games. Look, when we're bringing the Gothic vibes, you know football is back.